Welcome to Wild West Garage. My name's Morgan, and I'm sitting here on a 1957 Belair front bench seat. Came out of that car there on the hoist. And if you watched my last video, you saw me get the car running. You saw me drive it out of the shop, and you saw the mice and the mess that they made of the car. You saw me washing it out. So now I'm just looking for entry points, little holes in the bottom of the car where mice might be able to climb inside it. I really don't want to have to deal with this again. Actually, you know, I knew mice were getting in it. I discovered a mouse nest actually years ago, probably 20 years ago. They climbed up the A-pillar and made a nest above the sun visor, and rotted the headliner out in a spot. So I managed to get all that pulled out of there. So I just didn't do anything about it back then. I realize now I should have, because I wouldn't have had this all this to deal with. But I didn't, so I do. So anyways, now I'm trying to deal with it, and I'm patching up some of the holes, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing to patch those holes up. So now I'm sitting here in my chair in the house, and also in this video there's going to be some discussion on how I restored this car, I don't know, 30 years ago or 40 years ago almost, and some work I did on the carburetor. So stay tuned for that. So there's a hole, and I guess what's supposed to be there is like a flap, like a rubber flap, and it probably has like a tab on it, like a tongue that pokes into that top rectangular hole there, and then it just hangs down in front of that round hole. And I would imagine there was probably more of those holes along the rocker panel, but I'm going to explain why there aren't more in a second. Here's a hole that I did patch up. So I don't know if you recognize that, but that's Tortron roofing. So what I did was I cut out a couple of squares. Here's one right here. And so I just heat up the back side of this, hold it with a pair of pliers, and heat it with the torch, and then just stick it on where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and patch that other hole. But while I got you under the car here, I figured I might as well just give you a little tour. So yeah, I better grab my light again. So you can probably imagine that, you know, 30 years ago, this was a pretty nice car. The bumper had it all painted silver and behind. You can see all the work I did here. I sandblasted the frame. So that was all, I mean, it would clean up, I guess. It's kind of splattered with mud. You know, all new lines and everything. Do a really good job of restoring the floor pan underneath. But still has a lot of the original undercoating on it. Had chrome backing plates. They're now kind of rusted. More rusted than chromed. Rear diff was all sandblasted and painted. Gas tank. So all the chrome on this car is original. I found that bumper end at an auto wrecker. It used to be called, it was called Cassidy Auto Wrecking. 40 years ago, they had a lot of old cars kind of around the perimeter of that yard, just kind of pushed off to the side. And I was in there hunting for parts for this car and maybe some other cars I had at the time. And this thing was buried in the ground. Well, this much of it was sticking out. So this part here was sticking out. And I actually tripped over it and fell. And I looked back to see what the heck I tripped on, and I recognized this. And so I dug it out of the ground. Of course, it was full of dirt. But up in here, all that's left of it is the chrome. See that? That's all that's left of it. So there's I don't know, about 4 square inches of chrome here that's got nothing behind it. So that just goes to show you how much chrome they put on these things. It's amazing. It's interesting though, because down here, there's hardly any chrome. You can see the metal rusting through. But anyways, I mean, I guess I don't understand why there wouldn't be more plating here. I have no idea, but there's tons of chrome on the top part because it's all that's holding the thing together. So I mean, that's looking actually pretty good for something I dug out of the ground 40 years ago. So anyways, what else? So I'm going to talk about these inner rockers. So there is a drain hole there, original drain hole. And I don't think I need these drain holes because there's all these drain holes. There's a bunch of them every foot or so along the bottom of the rocker, so it's not going to fill up with water. And I don't know if there might have been another one there, like that. But see that? That's just a patch I pop riveted over top. There's another patch I pop riveted over top there. This body brace is, this one looks like it's welded. So I took the time to make this and weld it all up. And I only had a gas welder back then, but it's pop riveted in place. You can see the pop rivets. I wasn't much on welding 40 years ago. All I had, like I said, I just had a gas welder. I didn't have a MIG welder. They weren't, I guess they were just sort of coming out available for, the general public back then. So on this side, I got a piece riveted all the way back to here. Then I got another piece here. So all that's left of the original rocker panel is about a foot, or the inner I should say, is about a foot of it right here. That's an original brace. I'll start at the front. So you can see pop rivets. I just made that up out of, looks like 3 pieces, pop riveted it. Here's another one made up of 3 pieces. This is just another one here made up out of 3 pieces, just pop riveted together. You can see a bunch of pop rivets there on the floor. So there's a patch on this corner of the floor that's just held in with pop rivets. So I'm trying to make a point here. Here's another body brace. More pop rivets. Here's a body brace that's got holes in it that I didn't bother to fix. And then we're back over here. So, and then above that body brace, there's a section of the floor that's just riveted in as well. Looks like there's a screw there too. So the point I'm trying to make here is if you don't have welding equipment, you can still fix up an old car and it's gonna last. I did this work like 40 years ago. Some of this work I did 40 years ago. Between 37 and 40 years ago, roughly. And I drove this car a lot. This was my car. This was my only car for probably 3 or 4 years of my life. And I drove it to work. I drove it in the wintertime. I drove it everywhere. Took it on trips to the States, to the interior. I think I drove as far as Kelowna and as far as Portland. I took it to the Portland swap meet one time. Down to Seattle a couple times for Super Chevy Sunday. So anyways, I put a lot of miles on this car in those years. And it's held up remarkably well. And actually I kept this car outside. That's what killed the paint job. I kept it outside for a couple of years too. So you know, I haven't treated it very well. I'm gonna be quite honest. I'm way better at fixing things than I am at looking after them. So anyways, I think I'm gonna start looking after this car a little better. Enjoy it. Do some driving around, have some fun with it again. You know, the time has come. I'm in a position now where I can afford to jump into some of my own projects. It's got a Bell-Tech disc brake conversion on it. The reason I got this conversion was I was doing some restoration work on a 57 two-door hardtop, and my customer wanted to convert it to disc brakes. So I bought this disc brake conversion, and then it wouldn't fit inside his wheels that he had on. He had some old Keystone 5-spoke wheels, aluminum wheels, and he didn't want to give those up. So that was the end of the disc brake conversion. So I put it on my car. It fits nicely inside these Camaro O'Reillys. So I was talking about this patch on the fender here. It's exactly what I did. I just knocked down the rusty part, and I probably brazed on a patch over top of the rust. And now it's come back to bite me with a vengeance. It's about half an inch thick here. It's just swelled up all inside there. I thought this was Bondo, but there's actually very little. There's no Bondo on there that I can see. There's no Bondo right there anyways. I thought it was just a Bondo heave, but it's a rust heave. So that's nasty. So anyways, I'm gonna put some more, plug some more holes, and then I'm gonna put the car down and see if I can figure out my problem with, well, actually the carburetor smartened up, so I think it just probably had a piece of junk caught in the needle and seat, so that's good. I don't have to worry about that now until it happens again. And I just got to figure out the overheating issue that I talked about in my last video. And then if I do that, if I get that sorted out, I'm going to clean the glass, throw the seat back in it, go downtown, get some insurance, and drive this thing around a bit. Well, we're talking about this this brake conversion. See the hose there, the flex hose? See how nice and factory looking that is? That's the original brake hose bracket there from the old drum brakes. So I mean, this brake hose couldn't have fit nicer than that, I don't think. It just looks, it's perfect. It comes down, it doesn't rub on anything. But I got a story about these brake hoses. So when I first put this conversion on. Of course, I don't know exactly why, but the kit didn't come with brake hoses. I think you probably could have ordered those separately, but I didn't order them, and so what I ended up doing was I found a hose that fit the caliper, and I found a hose that fit the brake line, the hard line coming down, and it ended up being a bit long, and so I tied it up onto the spindle, and I thought, and I checked it to make sure. I thought, I guess I obviously didn't check it good enough, because it did end up rubbing. And the kind of frightening thing about this story is when my wife and I were just in early stages of our marriage, we had 2 kids. We had 2 little ones. I had dual car seats in the old Chevy, dual exhaust, dual car seats. It was pretty cool. Anyways, we were daily driving this thing, probably for about a year. And my wife was taking the kids places in it and taking it to go shopping and everything. And so one day, we were going to go out for dinner, and some friends of ours said, well, we'll look after your kids for you. You guys go have a nice dinner. So we dropped the kids off, and then when we left, we went out to drive out, and down their street, and came to a stop sign, and there was a hill coming down from my left, and then it was flat ground to my right, and we were sitting there waiting to turn right, and there was a car coming down the hill, and so I was going to wait for this car to go by, and this car is cammed up a little bit, so the idle's up a little high, so you gotta hold it with the brake, right? Otherwise it just takes off. So anyways, I'm sitting there at the stop sign, waiting for this car to come by, and all of a sudden the pedal goes to the floor, and the car just takes off. And so I'm gonna get T-boned or rear-ended or something. So I just jumped on the gas, tore out of there, flying down this road with no brakes. Well, I shouldn't say that. I did have some brakes because I've got a dual channel master cylinder on this car. So I still had rear brakes, so I was still able to slow the car down, but it wasn't very effective. So anyways, that was pretty scary. I when I thought about it after, I thought, wow, my wife could have been flying down the highway with this thing, and that could have happened to her, and she could have been in a terrible accident. But luckily it didn't happen that way. So anyway, so if you're doing stuff like this, be careful. You got to be doubly sure that what you're doing is right. It's going to work. It's going to be safe. You don't want to mess around with this kind of stuff. So anyways, I had a subscriber or somebody commented on my last video on this car. They said, tell us stories while you're working on it. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I intended to do. This car does have a lot of stories. Well, the car doesn't have stories. I have the stories, but they involve this car. So, and I'm slowly remembering them as I hit this thing. So, I'll have more for you. So anyways, I left out a little detail there. So the hose the original hoses that I had on the, so I had two hoses and I joined them together. So they were quite a bit longer than these. And so I had them, like I said, I had them tied on to the, had it kind of zigzagged a little bit through here to take up some of the slack. Anyways, end up rubbing on the tire, and that's what caused the loss of brakes. So it turns out these brake hoses were on a car right here on this property, probably, I'm gonna say right here, on a car that was right here before I built the shop. Had some cars stored back here. It was just a chassis from a I think it was a 72 full-size Chevy wagon. So I walked out here one day, well, maybe the day after or whatever, that I had this problem with the brakes, and I looked down at this thing, and I don't know if I walked out there because I thought maybe it would have the right part. Can't remember, but there these hoses were. So I took those hoses off, and those are the hoses. They're still in good condition. I haven't had any reason to change them. At least I think they're in good condition. I should probably take a good look at them. But they're on there. They fit beautifully. They don't have any rub issues. They look like they're factory. So that's what you need. So, like I said, be careful. Another area of the car I'd like to point out to you is, see up in here, you see that seam there? I think you can see some pop rivets there. So this whole inner wheelhouse is made entirely out of fiberglass. My dad had this, he took this kind of I'm going to call it a greenhouse, and it had this probably, like, I'm not going to say it was 1/8 thick, it was 16th of an inch thick fiberglass sheets on it. And so I cut up pieces to fit in here. So originally the car would have had a metal piece in here that was spot welded to the like the inner wheelhouse, and then it extended out to the quarter panel, and there would have been a rubber gasket there. So what I did, I had issues with I think there was rust holes on at least one side underneath this trim here where that rubber gasket touches. So I sandwiched fiberglass on both sides of this quarter panel to plug that hole up. And then I put this, and I also had rust where this this wheelhouse extension was pop riveted onto the inner, like the trunk panel. That's a very common rust area on these cars. And so anyways, I did the same thing. I sandwiched fiberglass on both sides of that inner wheelhouse inside the trunk, and then I put this wheelhouse extension in, and I fiberglassed it to the quarter panel and to the inner wheelhouse trunk panel, and it looks amazingly good still. I don't see any issues with it at all. Did the same thing on this side. This is the original piece here, this bottom piece. Yeah, you can see where the fiberglass comes down there, right there. So yeah, you can see it all up in there. That's just the fiberglass panel. So it's survived amazingly well all these years. And I'll take you and show you the trunk as well, and you can see what that looks like. Okay, so here's a little look inside the trunk just so you can see what's going on in here. So all Very, very common rust area. So all along here, it was rusted out. So that's fiberglass there. You can see it's bubbling a bit. And looks kind of nasty up in that area. I wonder if that is where the mice are coming in right there. See that hole? It could be. A mouse could get in there, and it looks like there's traffic there. See all that dirt? That's where they're coming in, the little buggers. They're walking up that inner fender and coming in there. Bet you anything. They can get their head through a small hole. Huh. So I'll plug that. That's the drain hole. There's supposed to be like a rubber tube that goes from the you can see it there. See that hole above it? It's supposed to be a rubber tube going from there to there. Drains the back window. Anyway, you can see, you can see the seam there where the filler ended. See the filler? Stood up pretty good. Original trunk floor. Oh, and here's some more pop riveting. A little bit of fiberglass work there. It's funny how cars rust in different places. You know, identical cars. This car came from California, so it wasn't too bad. And it was, I think it was up in BC for a while, but anyways, yeah, the trunk or the spare tire well was badly rusted out on it. And this is the spare tire well out of the first 57 Chevy I had, the 4-door 150. So that piece came out of that car. And this whole corner section here from about, let's see, right from there. I went around to here, I think. There's a splice going down on the outside, so it goes down like this across here. So that whole piece came out of that 150. That was really rotted out on this car. It's just pop riveted in there too. So more pop rivets. This car is built with pop rivets. Pop rivets and fiberglass. Very little welding involved to restore this car originally. So it's holding its own. I crashed it once here. That's another story. Okay, so the flooding problem fixed itself. Must have had like I said, must have had a piece of junk caught in the needle in the seat. But the accelerator pump doesn't work, so I'm gonna pull the carb off and go through it and see what's going on. So this would explain why the accelerator pump doesn't work. Its plunger is stuck down. Oh, there we go. It's kind of glued in there. So it should work now. Yeah, it does. Yeah, look at that. It's gonna work. Okay, that solved that problem. But this carburetor is full of sand. See this? It's black. Black sand. Really fine sand. Nasty. So I gotta get that all cleaned out of there. See it in the bottom? Look at it. Look at it in here. Look at this stuff. I don't think I've ever opened this carburetor. I bought this carburetor, I don't know, 30 something years ago from a guy. You got the intake, carburetor, and the heads. And they came off a boat. I wonder if it sunk. That would explain the sand. So I got this thing cleaned out, as good as I'm going to get it cleaned out. And I'm not putting a carb kit in this thing, so this is a thing that I do. This thing's still soft. Yeah, so it's fine. I don't know why it was stuck down, maybe a little bit of fuel varnish or whatever. So I'm going to put that back in. I'm just going to reuse the lid gasket. Got a little chewed up. I just left these pieces of it behind. They're going to go back where they were, right? In the gasket, that is. So I don't want to scrape that off. It might create an opening for air to leak or fuel to leak. So I'm just going to throw it back together and see how it works. See, there's some chunks of gasket on there still. So I'm just leaving it alone. I'm not going to touch anything. So I discovered another little issue here. See this lever here, and the throttle lever. So that is supposed to move independently of this. This is the linkage to the secondary. So this arm here, it goes over the throttle shaft, and it's got a spring on it. So when your carburetor's in choke mode like this, it prevents the secondaries from opening. So this guy here needs to be able to move independent of this, so you can get full throttle on the primaries. But it's seized up on the shaft here. So I may have noticed that. Once I got the car running, but it's a lot easier to try and free it up now. I did notice that there wasn't much throttle travel. I thought that was kind of odd. But anyways, that's the reason. So here, I'll show you what I mean here. See, now I've got this all freed up. So watch that lever there, that arm. See? See, because the choke's on, the secondaries, well, they are opening, but see how it clicks there? It's just skipping past the stopper. You can see over on this side. See that thing there? See that thing there on the choke? That keeps the secondaries from opening up. So if it's like that, then that needs to be free to move on the other side. Otherwise, you're not going to get your primaries opening up properly. So we got the carburetor all put back together and on the car and running, and just spent a little time here tuning it up, making it run sweet. Alright, so that was a bit of fun, and so I'm currently working on a video where I clean out the fuel tank and rebuild the sending unit and take the car for a drive. So that's coming up next. Thanks for watching.